Hey YouTubers, Rob here with part 2 of my dive into the C64 version of Elite. This part, I'm sort of going to be focusing around the trading and the primary way of making money in the game. The first part, I covered the basic sort of background of the game, the control UI, things like that. If you haven't watched that, I'll link the playlist below where I'm going to be putting the entire series. You can check that out there. Otherwise, I'm just going to dive in, pretty much show, some of the criteria on how to work out a good trading, power systems. I'll do a run, show you that, and show you some other systems that are pretty good when starting out, and you're not well equipped for combat. And as I showed in part 1, the C64 version of the game does struggle a lot when you're getting into heavy combat situations. So when you're starting out and you have a fairly weak ship, you probably want to keep out of those as much as possible. So I've just booted the game up here and we've got our status screen. As you can see, when you start from scratch, you are on the planet Lave. You have 7 light years of fuel and 100 credits. So I think the first thing we want to do is look at Lave and work out what we can buy cheaply, and then go on to work out where we can go and sell it. So let's look at what the information on the planet. You can see we're looking at a rich agricultural world. Worlds in Elite can be either agricultural, which are more taking sort of machines, computers, technical equipment kind of items, and giving you food and textiles and raw materials. We can see there's also the modifier rich. Worlds can be rich, average, or poor, and that also subtly influences what they take. So, for example, a world that's a rich world will probably want a lot more. We'll probably export more higher end things and take more of them by comparison. The next thing we have to look at is the government system. In this case, Lave is a dictatorship. Now, there are 8 different government types in Elite for a world, and dictatorships are actually more towards the dangerous territory. If you're looking at the scale, the safest worlds are classified as corporate worlds or democracies. They're the top 2, and the most dangerous are anarchies or feudal worlds. So you can sort of tell that sort of scale. It's all in the spaceflight training manual, which you can find online in various places. And in this case, we have tech level 5. It tells us that's more. The tech levels are sliding up from 1 to, I think, 12 or 13. I have to double check that. The tech level indicates the kind of technologies available to upgrade. So if you go to a world that's got a higher tech level, you can get some of the more advanced weapons or upgrades for your ship. It's not so important now. As for the rest of the stats, you've got the population, the productivity, and the radius. The race, I guess, planet size, you've got a little description. I'm not sure how they directly factor into the economic model, but it could be other aspects. So we know that we're looking at the agricultural world, and we know what it's probably going to want and sell. So let's bring up the market prices, and we can have a look. Oops. Market prices. So you could sort of see that food, textiles, liquor, and minerals are the cheapest of the items available. Again, if you look at the Elite manual, you actually find there's a table that has the average prices. I may overlay that if I can, just so you can sort of see for comparison. And so we look at this world. It looks like what we're best to do is maybe try and get some liquor if we can afford that, and food, and then move on and try and trade that to an industrial world. So the opposite of an agricultural world is an industrial world, as I've said earlier, and that's probably where we should go. So let's bring the buy menu up. And excellent, we've loaded ourselves up. If we back out, we look at the inventory, we've got everything we've got. So let's go to the short range map. Now, if we look at the worlds, there are 4 or 5 worlds within our range. So I know Leasty is a good target. The question is there anything else that's a good target? So that's a little further out. Especially when starting out, you don't want to do really far jumps in case something goes wrong. and you want to escape to hyperspace quickly. So let's leave that for now. So, I mean, if it wasn't for that, Xeon would be a good fix. But let's look at Leasty. We can see that it's a corporate state, so it's fairly safe. It's nice and close, 3.6, so a little over half our fuel. We can see it's a poor industrial. It looks like a good fit, so that means it'll be safe. So let's go. So we've locked it in. Yeah, bring the short range chart up to 5. Use the arrow keys to move your target. Once you're locked on a planet, hovering over a planet, that's your destination set. We can confirm that if we go to our status screen. We can see that it confirms. So let's launch, and let's jump into hyperspace with H. Now, again, in part 1, I covered everything instrument-wise, so I don't think I'm going to really go over it. But what we'll do now is, now we're off the new system, we'll start approaching the planet. We're in range of the planet, of course, we'll see the station. And hopefully we don't need to. Okay. This is probably one of those things where I may jump into speed this up rather than showing in real time, as it's always the slowest part of the flight where you're just waiting for something. So while you're flying to the planet, you can use you have the intermediate jump, which is the J key, and that will skip you towards the planet until you come in range of something. You come what they call mass locked. Now, in this case, we are mass locked right now, as there's something, but we can't see it on the radar yet. So I'm going to just fast forward through until we get closer to docking, and I can run you through the docking sequence. Pardon. So it turns out we've gotten ourselves involved in some combat. I wasn't planning for that at all. As a corporate state, we're looking at, at least he's supposed to be one of the safest systems to be in. But the good news is we have now gotten in range of the station. So you can tell you're in range of the station from two things. First thing is you'll see that little S appear at the bottom right of the radar panel, and the target inside your the little circular cluster above that, which points to the current, to the system or to the station, will now change, indicating, pointing to the station. So when approaching the station, you probably want to keep at a fairly good speed until you're really close, and then slow down. Now you can tell, as you could tell from launching, the station's entry exit port, the docking port, always faces towards the surface of the planet. So the way I tend to handle docking is I line up flying over the top of that port, turn towards the planet, stop, turn around, and then line up and come in nice and slow. I sort of learned that technique as trying to go the other way was hard to line up. So I found this a lot easier to line up and be accurate with. So The good news is, lucky was we're safe from pirate attack. Just seemed to have to use one missile. I want to talk more about that in another part, but when it comes to combat, there's a lot that you need to be involved with. So we're coming up to station now, and you can slowly start to see its rotation pattern. We're getting there now. Look at that final fiddly. It's always so fiddly. So you can sort of tell where the... There we go, where the exit... Okay, so coming over the top of the station. Now we want to turn towards the planet, which is to pull back on our control. And let's slow down, turn around and line ourselves up. There's always the fiddly part, as you know, if you make a mistake on that first phase, you could get it wrong. So in this case, see where the station is, so now we'll line up. Put some speed, put a little bit of speed. You don't want to go too fast. One of the hardest things, of course, is matching the rotation. It's because the stations are spinning for orbit, for gravity, you need to be careful to synchronize yourself with it. A little easier, would have been a little easier if you were playing on the BBC, just because if you had a joystick, where they were analog joysticks that you could sort of apply that enough input. Sadly, here on the Commodore, where we've only got digital joysticks, or as I am playing with the keyboard, it becomes a little tighter. So let's come in. Sort of see ourselves lining up, and almost there. Slide down a bit, and we're docked. So here we are. You can see that we've made it to Leasty. We've docked, and we should be able to now trade. So I'm just going to quickly save. Save to disk. I've saved. So let's have a look at the market prices. So you can see we've actually made a good bit of profit on both the food and the liquor. So let's go and sell that. We can sell that 8 tons of food, and we've actually made quite a bit of money out of this trip. So first thing I'm gonna do is refuel, and I'm gonna buy. I should buy 2 missiles. I'm gonna buy 1 missile. I really shouldn't have used it, but that was a bit of a surprise move. So the next thing we want to do is let's have a look nearby and see what safe industrial worlds we can visit. So we look at Orive. Whilst it's mainly industrial and it's decent amount of thing, it's a feudal world, and that means that it's going to be dangerous to actually visit. We're not ready for it. I mean, I was completely surprised by the accidental run here, so I think we'll leave that. Redequart is even worse. It's an agricultural, so that gives us, it's something we can sell to, but it's an anarchy, which means it's going to be dangerous. So that's not a fit either. DSO is an agricultural, but it's a democracy, and that gives an advantage in that we can probably trade safer there. And it's also incredibly short distance, so we can actually do a back and forth run, and we can go back and forth and hopefully make some okay money there. So I think that's where we should go. So what we're going to do now, is let's look at the market prices. So we're looking at a world. So we're looking at wanting. So I think alloys are probably worth something. And machinery. I think alloys will probably be a better pick for now. So we can just from that they've been processed. When we could maybe get 2 tons of machinery, which is probably not going to be that much of a dent. So let's go for the alloys and see how we go. Oops. Okay. Now we're all locked in. So I'm gonna launch and come back once I've docked in Daiso. So we can save the trip. So let's launch, and I'll see you once I've arrived at Daiso. Hello from Daiso, at last. This was a bit of a tricky flight. It's why I have a bit more cash in the bank, as I had run into a bit of pirate trouble. But we're here now, so I will do the customary save. Yeah, I'm just gonna, of course, overwrite my. So we'll save my pilot to disk. Unfortunately, you get the lovely. It's one thing I don't like is when you have different file names, is it reflects on the commander. You can't safely overwrite your existing commander. But here we are. So let's have a look at the market prices and see how we did. So we bought those alloys at around 33 credits each, and they're selling for 38. So not a bad haul, but it could be better. So there's not much we can do with that for now. I think if we have a look, we can see that computers look to be the in thing here. So let's sell our alloys. 180 is not bad. Now one thing I do like is we can actually get away with doing a run back to Leasty without having to refill the tank. But I am going to buy some missiles because I had to use 2 of them when I was attacked. So we look where we are. We could get a pretty good deal out of food and an alright deal out of the liquor and wines, which makes sense again as we're looking at a average world. So I think in this case we can focus on. Yeah, let's focus on the let's focus on some liquor and wines. We'll get at least some profit out of that, and then food as usual. So 1. Right. So there we go. We look at inventory. 7 tons of food, 5 tons of liquor and wines. Obviously, it makes sense to go back to Leasty. So let's do this. I will see you at Leasty, unless we have an interesting encounter on the way. And here we are at Leasty, not Daiso, as I said previously. This is a little bit of a trickier trip. I actually had to do it. I had to actually do it again as I crashed at docking, which is quite fun after you've spent a bit of time. But we're here now, so let's have a look at the market prices and see how we did. So on board, we've got our 5 tons of food, 5 tons of liquor. And if we have a look, we'll make a decent price on food and a decent price on the liquor. So let's sell those now. See where we stand money-wise. Nice. Over the course of this video, I've actually made 102 credits. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to do something a little different. What I want to do now is head to a little world, called Isinor. Isinor is 13 light years from where we are now at Leasty, and it's a rather good little agricultural world. The reason is I have a couple of little worlds around there that I can do trade runs with, where I've done sort of my trading grind. I can go there, I could usually bring computers to this planet, and then I can take supplies here to other worlds and that are a jump away and do pretty well. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to do a quick plot of the trip, and I will go back and show you how it all works. So first thing is, let's have a look. First stop will be Lave. We'll go to Lave. and we can take some supplies and drop them off. We then go to Zaos is just outside our jump radius here, but will be within a lathe. Then we can go to Isanor, which is a jump from Zaos. So we've got 3 worlds. Once we get there, we can then do a bit of a grind around various places and do a fair bit of trading. So I'm gonna buy a loadout, go to lathe. I will check in at each station. So when I get to lathe, I'll show you, I'll trade, do the next leg, and so on. The idea here is it's a little. I don't think you want to see the same repetitive space flight unless anything comes up, and it'll be a good way to sort of round out the video. So let's go to our local map, and we'll set our destination for lathe, which we know is an agricultural world, so we can probably bring some tech. Yeah, we can probably think we can get away with some of the richer stuff, so we could probably get away with I think we can get away with I think we'll do a run with computers. So that's going to be interesting. We won't be able to afford much. We've got 2 tons of computers on board. So, let's go. Is there anything else that we might be able to grab? I think we'd do something with minerals. One more ton of minerals to round it out. Okay. So we are locked in for lathe. I will see you there. And so we've made it to lathe intact. So let's see how we did price-wise. We know we've got 2 tons of computers, 4 tons of minerals. So let's look at the market prices. Well, we did okay on the computers. Not so much on the minerals. But it's not a complete bust. So we'll need the fuel. On the other hand, we will need to sell all our cargo. 231. So we're okay. I will buy a missile, as I did running. There was a little running, but nothing too serious. So our next step is Zaons. So we have a look at it. It's an average industrial, but a pretty safe one at that. It is more of a jump than I'd like, but I think that's a pretty solid risk to take for this little leg. So we know it's an industrial, and we know it's average, which means it should be okay for what it takes. So let's go and grab. Okay, that price for liquor is probably a bit higher than I'd like. But we got a good price for it. Let's actually buy more minerals. So let's go 11. Right, let's just keep 15 tons of minerals. By default, the Cobra can only handle 20 tons, so I think I'll leave that as it is for now. So I'm gonna head to Zayots. I will see you there, unless anything comes up again. Well, I thought this was gonna be a smooth milk run. At least this time it's only a single pirate. Though with half my front shield gone, it's Definitely a little trickier than I thought. Okay, now he's got missiles fired, so I have to be careful. Okay, that's not good. I used a missile to take him out at the end, but at the same time, I got hit with 2 of his, so I have no shields. I'm gonna try and fly safely to the docking port. I will see you there. Hopefully intact. Okay, so after that little pirate rendezvous, finally made it to Zaunce. Could finally unload things. That was actually 3rd attempt at trying to make that run. First time was an immense wave of pirates. The second time I crashed into the station. So this time I ended up picking up a few more minerals and not selling the ones I'd carried with me. So we're here. Let's go and reload our fuel. Let's go and grab a missile. Now, next we can look at is our map. So, what it comes down to with these routes that I usually work from is I usually start with Izanor, which we can see is a confederacy and a poor agricultural. So it's a fairly safe planet to go to. I usually go there and I try to pick up food and liquor. And then I will usually try to bring it. I used to use this, well, Tionisla, which we could see is a democracy and an average industrial. So it was actually a pretty good match. Those two, the only downside is the interplanetary distance, the distance between those two systems was just over half a tank of fuel. So you'd have to refuel every stop, which sort of eats into profits. On the other hand, there's this little world, Quartieri. I only worked this one out about recently. The good news is, it actually works out to be short enough. The distance between it and Izanor is short enough that you can actually go there and back on a single load of fuel. The downside is, and it's a rich industrial world, which is always good. The downside is, as you can see, it's a multi-government system, and those are one of the more dangerous types. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to go to Izanor, which, as we know, is an agricultural world, much unlike Zaunce. And I'm going to try and bring some tech goods there. Let's have a look at market prices. How are we going? I'm going to bring computers. I'm going to bring as many computers as the ship can hold. Computers usually earn... The thing I found is, if you can get computers to Izanor, I find that you could usually get a good, reliable profit from them. You can usually get, like, here we're going to look at like 25 to 30 credits per computer. So even if that's only a couple of computers, that's a good bit of profit. So let's do that. So we know computers are 67, and we have 201. So we're looking at 3 computers. Just shy of 3 computers. Hilarious. Okay. So, let's lock ourselves onto Izanor. I will head there. and then we can start grinding and trading. So I will see you there, and hopefully not any, and hopefully it's a safe run, and then you don't get to see some combat. What was that about not seeing combat? Yep, we've got a mass of pirates, so let's armor missiles. Now the question is, how can I tell that there's pirates? The big way is usually from the cluster on the radar. Now, yeah, so when it comes to a pirate attack, the hardest thing is that first pass. That first pass where they're all together, because they're all firing right into your, the front or rear quadrant, half of your shields. So you really want to try and lay it on a missile and go from there. But once you can get one, and once they break out of formation, you've probably got a better chance of going one-on-one. But yeah, typically, I mean, the sort of tips I'm giving has been to sort of try and avoid those kind of worlds, just for the risk. I mean, now, one of the things is using missiles is sort of considered the cheap life insurance, and in the sense that missiles aren't, while missiles are cheap, unfortunately you won't make the equivalent of a kill from them. So you can use a missile to make a kill, but you'll have lost money. So yeah, so that's sort of a decision. It's why this little adder is no longer a problem. Okay, and after a number of troubled runs, pirates and mostly pirates, we finally made it to Izanor. As it turns out, we actually got quite a bit of bounty on the way, and well, quite a few kills under the belt, which is always a benefit. So, as we can see from the market prices, luxury's usually a pretty good deal, as are computers. And with what we have on the ship, which is mostly computers, we're going to actually be in a pretty good position money-wise. So you can see we're now sitting at 315 credits, and which would give us a chance to refuel. By 2 missiles, we actually we used all our missiles battling pirates, sadly. So the next thing we can do is look out for where we should go next. And this is sort of the stage where I think I will wrap things up. So if we have a look on a map, I mean, we're a Confederacy, which is supposed to be fairly safe, but not. As I said, at this stage, you know, we want to avoid trouble, and that really is going to Tianesla. We can see it's a nice democracy, average, industrial. So the plan is to take. What I'm going to do is take as much liquor as I can, liquor and wines, bring it to Tianesla, and then fill the hole with computers and bring them back here. I'm going to do that for a while as a grind, which will allow me to basically make a lot of money. As you can see, I actually did it even from like 2 computers. I actually made a pretty decent profit. So the plan will be to do more of that for a while, and I'll take that. I'll do that aside. I'll come back with the next part in the near future, and hopefully be ready to upgrade and actually try and tackle some combat. Thanks for watching. I know this has been, by comparison, been a fairly long video to watch, and I'm hoping you find it interesting, and I look forward to bringing you part 3 or videos of other games shortly. Thanks again.